5 years after I died, my girlfriend brought her new fiancé to my grave. 5 years after I died, the woman I loved brought another man to my grave. Lena Winters arrived just before noon, wearing a cream-colored coat and holding the stranger's hand. Sunlight poured across the cemetery with almost insulting warmth. After several weeks of rain, the sky had finally cleared. Birds moved between the old oak trees, and wildflowers had begun appearing along the stone paths. It was the kind of day Lena and I once would have wasted indoors, arguing over which film to watch. Instead, I stood behind my own headstone and watched her introduce me to the man who would replace me. He was tall, neatly dressed, and perhaps a few years younger than us. A silver ring rested on his left hand. Lena wore a matching one. For 5 years, she had worn the engagement ring I never lived long enough to give her properly. Today, it was gone. The dead are not supposed to feel cold. That afternoon, I did. Lena stopped in front of my headstone. The man beside her lowered his head politely. She studied the engraved words. Evan Hale, beloved son, loyal friend, 1996 to 2023. No one had written fiancé. I died 3 days before I planned to propose. For a long time, Lena said nothing. That was normal. Every time she visited, she left pauses between her sentences, as though she still expected me to answer. I always did. She simply could not hear me. At least, that was what I believed. Finally, Lena smiled. Evan, this is Thomas. I forced myself to look at him. Hello, Thomas. The stranger glanced over his shoulder as though he had heard something. Lena tightened her grip on his hand. We became engaged yesterday, she continued. I wanted you to be the first person we told. My neighbor Maeve, another spirit buried to Rose, behind me, appeared beside a stone angel. She crossed both arms. Oh, this is cruel. Go away, I muttered. I told you not to watch. This is my grave. And apparently her engagement announcement, venue. Maeve, fine. I'll remain silent. She remained exactly where she was. Lena took a slow breath. Thomas is kind. He's patient with me, even when I'm difficult. You're never difficult, I said automatically. Maeve gave me a look. You're dead and still lying to her. Lena continued. He makes me laugh. He remembers how I take my coffee. And he doesn't complain when I work too late. I tried to smile. That sounds good. I think we'll be happy. Her voice trembled slightly. Thomas looked at her. Lena. She squeezed his hand until he stopped speaking. Then she looked at my photograph set into the headstone. I won't visit any more, Evan. The words entered me more sharply than the moment my life ended. I want to begin again. I stared at her. For 5 years, I had begged her to say exactly that. Every Friday, whether it rained, snowed, or the summer heat made the cemetery unbearable, Lena came to see me. She brought flowers, fruit I could no longer taste, coffee I could no longer drink. Sometimes she brought a pastry from the bakery near our old flat and placed it beside the stone. You always stole the icing, she would say. I answered every time. You always pretended not to notice. She told me about work, the neighbors, political scandals, films she hated, the cat destroying another set of curtains, every ordinary detail of a life continuing without me. I wanted her to fall in love again. I had said it hundreds of times. Now she had. So why did it feel as though I were dying for a second time? That's wonderful, I whispered. My voice broke. Maeve stepped closer, but I shook my head before she could touch me. Lena bent down and removed something from her coat pocket. My ring, the one I had bought before the accident, the one the police found inside my jacket and gave to her with my belongings. She placed it at the base of my headstone. I don't need this anymore. I dropped to my knees. No. Her fingers remained on the ring for one final second. Thank you for loving me, Lena. Don't, and thank you for giving me the happiest years of my life. You can keep it, but those years are over now. Keep the ring. She stood. Thomas placed one arm around her shoulders. Lena looked at my photograph for a moment longer. Then she said the word I had spent 5 years fearing. Goodbye. She turned away. I reached for the ring. My fingers passed through the metal. I tried again. Nothing. Lena. She continued walking. Wait. Her back remained straight. Thomas glanced down at her hand. She was holding him so tightly that his wrist had turned red. Lena, please, I ran after them. There is a boundary around every grave. Most spirits discover it quickly. We can move only so far from the place where our remains are buried, unless we are ready to leave the living world completely. I reached the edge of mine and slammed into an invisible wall. Lena was still walking. Say it once more, I begged. She did not turn. Just say you love me one more time. Maeve caught my shoulders as I sank to the ground. Evan, I wasn't prepared. You had 5 years. I thought I was. I know. She left the ring. I know. She never took it off. Maeve knelt beside me. People change, not Lena. Everyone changes. She said she would love me forever. You asked her to move on. I didn't think she would do it today. Maev's expression softened. You wanted her to live. I still do. Then let her. I looked toward the cemetery gates. Lena and Thomas had disappeared. The ring remained beneath my photograph, shining. In the afternoon light, I reached for it once more. My fingers passed through it. Something inside me broke. I first met Lena when we were 16. She attended the same secondary school in Edinburgh, though calling what we did meeting would be generous. I noticed her. She ignored me. Lena sat near the front of every classroom, answered questions before teachers finished asking them, and terrified anyone foolish enough to copy her work. She lived with her mother, Catherine, in a small, terraced house near the edge of the city. Her father had left when she was 6. Catherine was gentle, anxious and often overwhelmed. Lena responded by becoming hard enough for both of them. She never cried at school, never admitted fear, never asked for help. I was nearly the opposite. I disliked confrontation, spoke too quietly, apologized whenever someone bumped into me. My parents worried that the world would swallow me whole. Lena once watched me apologize to a chair after walking into it. She stared for several seconds. Did the chair accept? I looked down. I think we're working through it. That was the first time she laughed at something I said. I fell in love with her immediately. She later claimed she had loved me first. We argued about that 4 years. After our final school examinations, I heard Lena planned to attend the University of Edinburgh. I changed my application to match hers. The following day, a rumor reached me that she had changed her choice to Glasgow. Panicking, I changed mine too. Lena appeared outside my home that evening, carrying a mango cake. She claimed she had happened to be passing. Lena lived 40 minutes away. Which university did you choose? She asked. Glasgow. Her expression froze. You told everyone Edinburgh. I changed my mind. Why? I heard Glasgow's program was better. That's ridiculous. I researched it. For how long? Several minutes. Her eyes narrowed. Are you certain? Yes. She shoved the cake into my hands. Fine. Then she left without taking a slice. The following morning, I learned Lena had changed her application to Glasgow too. Neither of us admitted why. For 2 years, we loved each other in complete stupidity. I planned to confess during our first year at university. On the afternoon I finally gathered enough courage. I found Lena rejecting another student near the library gardens. I'm sorry, she told him. I'm not interested in men. I stood behind a hedge holding flowers. The student walked away. Lena sighed with relief. She had invented the excuse because he refused to accept a polite rejection. I did not know that. I returned the flowers to the shop. For the next 18 months, I assumed Lena did not like men. Meanwhile, she waited for me to confess. During our 3rd year, she finally lost patience. She cornered me on the university sports field in front of at least 200 students. Evan Hale. I looked around. Students had gathered in a wide circle. Maeve, who was alive at the time and studying theatre, was standing on a bench with her phone raised. Lena walked directly toward me. "Are you dating anyone?" "No." "Do you want to?" "I suppose, with me." The entire field became silent. I stared at her. "What?" Her face turned red. "I am asking whether you want to date me." "I thought you didn't like men." She looked genuinely confused. "Who told you that?" "You did." "When?" "In the gardens." Realization appeared, then fury. "That was 2 years ago. I remember. I was trying to reject someone who wouldn't leave me alone." "Oh." Lena closed her eyes. "Evan, yes. You have allowed one sentence to prevent you from speaking for 2 years. Yes. You are the most ridiculous person I have ever met." "I've heard that before." She stepped closer. "Do you love me?" I considered lying. The crowd leaned forward. Maeve shouted, "Answer her before graduation." I looked at Lena. "Yes." "How long?" "Since the chair incident." Her eyes filled with tears. "You absolute idiot." "I know." She kissed me before I could apologize. That was how our relationship began. Not gracefully, not privately, and certainly not according to any plan. It was perfect. Lena loved with her entire body. People who met her professionally believed she was cold. They saw the direct questions, precise schedules, and expression that could silence a conference room. They did not see her at home. She danced badly while cooking, stole my clothes and denied it while wearing them, sent me photographs of every dog she saw. If we argued, she could remain furious for hours. But the moment I became genuinely upset, she abandoned her pride completely. Our first serious argument ended with me locking myself inside the bedroom. 5 minutes later, she appeared outside carrying cake. "Who wants dessert?" I remained silent. "I have mango." "Still nothing." "I will eat all of it." The door opened. Lena smiled. "You're predictable. You're manipulative. You still want cake." I stepped aside. She entered. That became our system. I handled the plants because Lena could kill a cactus through emotional neglect. She handled difficult people because I once thanked a landlord for raising our rent politely. We adopted a black cat from a shelter and named her Midnight. Midnight loved me instantly and tolerated Lena because she controlled the food. Lena claimed not to care. Then I caught her buying Midnight a climbing tower. That cost more than our sofa. We lived in a small flat where the heating failed every winter. We saved for a home, discussed children, planned trips we never had enough time to take. Our relationship was not extraordinary from the outside. There were no luxury holidays, no dramatic proposals, no photographs designed to make strangers jealous. There was burnt toast, laundry left too long in the machine, late night supermarket trips, Lena sleeping with one cold foot against my leg. I thought we had decades left. That assumption made ordinary happiness feel inexpensive. I did not understand its value until it was gone. I bought the ring during our 7th year together, a simple silver band with a small blue stone. Because Lena hated diamonds and loved the sea, I planned to propose on the anniversary of our first kiss. 3 days before that date, I drove to collect her cake. Rain had begun falling heavily. A delivery van lost control at an intersection. I remember bright headlights, the sound of metal, then silence. When I opened my eyes, I was standing beside the road. My body remained inside the damaged car. People were shouting. Someone called emergency services. I tried to reach the vehicle, but my hands passed through it. That was how I learned I had died. Lena arrived at the hospital too late. She did not cry when the doctor spoke to her. She did not cry when my parents arrived. She handled the paperwork, identified my belongings, selected a suit for the funeral, answered every question with frightening calm. Then a police officer handed her the ring box. Lena opened it. Whatever strength had held her together disappeared. She sat on the hospital floor and screamed my name until her voice failed. I was standing beside her. I tried to hold her. My arms passed through her body. Lena. She could not hear me. I'm here. She pressed the ring against her chest. Please come back. I'm here. Evan, please. I'm right here. That was the worst moment of my death. Not the crash, not seeing my own body. Watching the person I loved beg for someone, standing inches away. After the funeral, I discovered I could not leave the cemetery. Maeve explained the rules. She had died 6 months earlier after discovering that the man she planned to marry had been living a second life. She drove home through a storm, lost control of her car and never arrived. She disliked sympathy. I am not tragic, she informed me during our first night as neighbors. I am furious. Can we go home? No. Why? Because we're dead. I understand that. Do you? Not completely. Maeve explained that most spirits crossed over quickly. Some remained because of unfinished love, guilt, or fear. The longer we stayed, the harder leaving became. You'll see people visit, she said. At first it feels comforting. Later it becomes a chain. I need to know Lena is all right. You will never be satisfied. I only need a few days. Maeve laughed. Every ghost says that. Lena came the following morning. She brought an entire bouquet instead of a single flower. Her eyes were swollen. She sat in front of my grave for 3 hours. I fed midnight, she said. Thank you. She keeps waiting near the door. I know. I haven't moved your shoes. You don't have to. Your mother called. Is she all right? I told her I would visit. Thank you. Lena left a pause after every sentence. I filled each silence. It felt like a conversation. 1 week became a month. 1 month became a year. Every Friday, Lena returned. Rain or snow, sickness or exhaustion. Sometimes she spoke 4 hours. Sometimes she said nothing. She brought fruit during summer, roasted chestnuts in autumn and hot tea during winter. I always reached for them even though I could touch nothing. On our anniversary, she brought a mango cake. 7 years, she whispered. Can you believe it? I sat beside her. I remember when you changed universities because of me. You changed first, only because you changed. I changed because I thought you had changed. We were idiots. Lena smiled faintly. We were idiots. I froze. For one impossible moment, it felt as though she had answered me. Maeve appeared behind the oak tree. What happened? She said what I said. Coincidence. Lena often did that. I would make a joke, and several seconds later she would smile. I asked a question, and she would eventually answer it. I convinced myself that love had made our habits predictable. I did not consider another explanation. The living could not see the dead. Everyone knew that. By the 5th year, I had become worried. Lena had not dated anyone. She still wore my ring. Our flat remained almost unchanged. She replaced the bed linen because she hated the blue set I had chosen, but she kept my coats, books and coffee mug. Midnight slept on my side of the bed. Lena played old recordings of my voice when the cat became restless. Every Friday, I asked her to move forward, meet someone. She continued describing her week. Sell the flat. She told me about a difficult client. Stop visiting. She complained about a restaurant ruining her lunch. Forget me. She sat silently for so long that I thought the wind itself had stopped. Then she whispered, I miss you. I began begging. Lena, you're still alive. I'm tired today. You're wasting your life. The house feels empty. You could have children. Midnight has gained weight. You could love someone again. When I play your recordings, she rolls onto her back. Please. Lena looked at my photograph. I wish you were here. I am. I don't know how to live without you. You have to learn. Maeve heard everything. One evening, after Lena left, she sat beside me. You need to go. I can't. You're keeping each other trapped. She doesn't know I'm here. Maeve looked unconvinced. What? Nothing. What aren't you telling me? The 5th anniversary is approaching. So, spirits who remain longer than 5 years sometimes lose the ability to cross. I stared at her. What happens to them? They become attached to the place. For how long? perhaps forever. I looked toward the cemetery gates. Why didn't you tell me? Because until now, you weren't ready to listen. I can't leave her like this. You remaining does not help her. What am I supposed to do? Let go. How? Maeve looked at the ring Lena had worn during every visit. You'll know when she does. Neither of us noticed Lena standing several rows away beneath her umbrella. We believed she had already gone. The following Friday, Lena said she had moved to a house closer to the cemetery. You moved closer. It makes visiting easier. That is the opposite of what I asked. The rooms are quieter. Lena, I changed the sheets. Excellent. Now change your entire life. I kept your things. Of course you did. Midnight misses you. I miss her too. She sleeps beside your coat. Lena, listen to me. Her eyes lowered. I was thinking of coming every day. No. 1 week is too long. No, no, no. Would you mind? Yes. She smiled softly. I knew you wouldn't. The following morning, she returned. Then again the next day. For 1 week, Lena visited daily. Her conversations became strange. She spoke faster, changed subjects constantly, told me stories from university I knew she had never forgotten. It felt as though she were trying to fit years of words into 7 days. On the 4th day, her ring disappeared. I noticed immediately. Where is it? Lena sat beside my grave without flowers. There's a new man at the company. No. His name is Thomas. Where is the ring? He's thoughtful. Lena. He makes me feel something I thought I had lost. I stood. Are you dating him? My heart still works. Of course it works. I forgot how it felt to become nervous when someone looked at me. I tried to smile. That's good. The words tasted false even though I had no body. Lena's eyes appeared brighter than usual. I think I like him. Maeve watched from a distance. She seemed relieved. I wanted to be relieved too. The following day, Lena described dinner with Thomas. He remembers details. Good. He held my hand. Good. I didn't pull away. Excellent. Each word hurt. On the 6th day, she said they were discussing marriage. That's rather fast. He says when you know. No. That is something foolish people say before expensive divorces. Lena almost smiled. I think he may propose. I sat beside her. Say yes. She remained quiet. Lena, say yes. Her hands trembled. I'm frightened. So was I. What if loving someone new means losing you? Completely. You already lost me. The sentence felt cruel. I softened my voice. You deserve more than a grave. A tear moved down her cheek. I reached toward it. My fingers passed through her skin. Please live. Lena closed her eyes. All right. The next day, she brought Thomas. After they left, I remained beside the ring until sunset. Maeve tried to persuade me to walk away. I refused. Night covered the cemetery. Rain began shortly after midnight. You cannot continue pretending she returned, Maeve said. She might. She said it was the final visit. People change their minds. Evan. She always changes her mind. Not about this. You don't know her. Marev's expression changed. You are right. I don't. Then stop talking. I know grief. That isn't the same. I know what it means to remain where someone else has already left. I turned toward her. You wanted to marry someone who betrayed you, and you loved someone who remained loyal for 5 years. Exactly. Yet both of us are still here. Maeve looked toward the gates. I was supposed to become engaged the year I died. Instead, I discovered he had another woman and lost control of my car while driving home. I'm sorry. Everyone carries something unfinished. She touched my shoulder. But love cannot always finish it for us. I looked at Lena's ring. I wanted her to move on. I know. I believed I would be happy. You are happy for her. I can't stop crying. Two truths can exist together. I laughed weakly. You sound like a therapist. I studied theatre. That explains absolutely nothing. Actors and ghosts both spend too much time pretending. We remained together until dawn. Then Maeve looked behind me. Her expression suddenly changed. Evan, what? She stared past my shoulder. I turned. A dark figure moves through the morning rain. Lena. She was alone. No Thomas, no matching ring. She approached slowly, holding an umbrella in one hand. Her face was pale. She stopped before my grave. For the first time in 5 years, she did not bring flowers. "I've been thinking," she said. My hope rose so quickly that I hated myself for it. Maeve stepped backward. Lena continued. "I should say goodbye properly." My hope disappeared. Yesterday was not enough. "I'm sorry for leaving so quickly. It was probably difficult for Thomas. He had a strange dream last night." I frowned. "He dreamed about you." Maeve looked at me. Lena gave a fragile smile. "He said you were standing behind him, glaring." "I was not glaring." Maeve coughed. "You absolutely were." Lena's eyes moved slightly toward where I stood, then returned to the stone. "I told him not to worry. Thomas sounds sensitive. I told him you would never hurt him." "Correct. And that all three of us would be fine." "All three." Lena took a slow breath. "Evan, if some part of you can hear me, please, forget me." The rain struck her umbrella. I did not answer. For 5 years, I had filled every silence. This time, I could not. Lena waited. Then she whispered, "Thank you for appearing in my life. Thank you for choosing me. For making me happy. You made me happy too. For teaching me that I didn't always have to be strong. You still don't." Her mouth trembled. "I hope wherever you go next, someone takes care of you. I only wanted you. And I hope you forgive me for loving someone else." I looked at her for a long time. Then I smiled through my tears. "I forgive you." The rain continued for nearly an hour. Neither of us moved. At last, the clouds began breaking. Lena closed her umbrella and looked toward the brightening sky. "Goodbye, Evan." "Goodbye, Lena." She turned away. This time, I did not call her back. Maeve held out her hand. "Ready?" "No." Neither was anyone else. I looked at Lena's retreating figure. "Will she be all right?" "You no longer get to control that." "I never controlled anything." Maeve smiled. "Now you're learning." Light appeared beyond the cemetery walls. Warm, quiet, nothing like the headlights from the night I died. I took one final look at the woman I loved. Then I followed Maeve away from the grave. "Lena." I heard every word Evan said. From the first morning after his funeral, I saw him standing beside the headstone. He wore the same clothes from the accident. His hair fell across his forehead. His expression was terrified. "Lena," he kept saying, "I'm here." The doctors told me grief could create vivid experiences. They said the mind sometimes constructed a presence when reality became unbearable. But grief did not explain Maeve, or the other spirits wandering between the graves. During the accident, my heart stopped for nearly 2 minutes before the paramedics revived me. The hospital called it a complication caused by shock. Afterward, the dead became visible. Evan never realized living people were not supposed to see ghosts. I discovered quickly that if I looked directly at him or answered too precisely, he became suspicious. So I taught myself to act. I left spaces for his replies, turned my face away before smiling at his jokes, pretended I was speaking only to the stone. For 5 years, I had the person I loved close, enough to see but impossible to touch. Do you know what kind of torture that is? He sat beside me every Friday, reached for my hand, tried to wipe my tears. Every time his fingers passed through me, his expression broke. I wanted to tell him. I wanted to look directly at him and say, "I see you." But I was afraid. If he knew, he would never leave. And as the years passed, he became less solid. The edges of his body began fading in sunlight. Some days, he could not remember how long he had been waiting. Then I overheard Maeve tell him about the 5th-year limit. If Evan remained beyond the anniversary, he might never cross. He would stay trapped in the cemetery while I grew older. I could not allow that. Even if freeing him meant breaking his heart, even if it meant breaking mine. Thomas was not my fiancé. He was a colleague and a close friend. When I explained everything, he initially believed Grief had damaged my mind. Then Maeve appeared behind him and shouted his childhood nickname. I repeated it. Thomas stopped laughing. The rings were costume jewelry. The engagement story was false. He agreed to help because his younger sister had died several years earlier, and he understood what it meant to want peace for someone you could no longer save. Before we entered the cemetery, I warned him not to react. Evan may speak to you. Thomas became pale. Will I hear him? Probably not. What if I do? Don't answer. What if he threatens me? He apologizes to furniture. You'll survive. The moment Evan saw us holding hands, I nearly failed. His face changed. Every instinct told me to release Thomas and run to him. Instead, I tightened my grip until Thomas quietly whispered that I was crushing his wrist. When I said I would never visit again, Evan shook his head. When I left the ring, he dropped to his knees. Then he asked me to say that I loved him one more time. I nearly turned around. The entire performance almost collapsed. But if I looked at him, he would understand. So I continued walking. Outside the cemetery, Thomas removed the ring and returned it. You don't have to do this, he said. Yes, I do. You are shaking. I am fine. No one who says that has ever been fine. He looked back toward the cemetery. Is he still there? Yes. What is he doing? Crying. Thomas's face softened. Lena, don't. You love him. I have only ever loved him. Then why tell him otherwise? Because he loves me enough to remain forever. I looked at the ring in my hand, and I love him enough to make him leave. The following morning, I returned alone. I knew Evan would still be there. He never listened the first time. The moment I entered, I saw him standing beside Maeve. He tried to hide his tears and smiled at me as though he wanted my final memory of him to be peaceful. He believed I could not see. That was the only reason I survived the conversation. I told him to forget me. Every word felt like betrayal. When I said I hoped he would forgive me for loving someone else, he whispered, I forgive you. That nearly destroyed me. I wanted to tell him the truth. That Thomas was only a friend. That the engagement was false. That I had never removed Evan's ring except for those 7 days. That I loved him so completely, there was no room for another person. But Maeve was watching me. She shook her head. The light had already appeared. Evan had finally become ready. So I said goodbye. I walked away without turning. I reached the gates before my strength failed. Thomas was waiting in his car outside. He stepped out and caught me before I fell. Did it work? I looked back. Evan was standing inside the light. Maeve held his hand. He stared toward the gates. For one terrifying second, I thought he might return. Then he smiled. Not the desperate smile he had worn the previous day. The real one. The smile from university. From burnt dinners and winter mornings. From the life we had shared. Evan followed Maeve into the light. Then both of them disappeared. He's gone, I whispered. Thomas held my shoulders. I'm sorry. I pressed Evan's ring against my chest. I'm not. That was a lie. After Evan crossed over, the cemetery became unbearably quiet. For 5 years, I had listened to his commentary. During every visit, he complained about the flowers I chose, corrected my version of old stories, made terrible jokes. When I sat in silence, he filled it. Now there was only wind. I stayed away for several months, not because I had moved on, because entering the cemetery and finding nothing felt worse than losing him the first time. Winter arrived. On the first morning of snow, I returned. Evan, no answer. I sat beside the grave. You were right. I should have worn warmer shoes. Nothing. I bought mango cake. Silence. I know you always stole the icing. Only snow moving through the trees. For the first time, I allowed myself to cry, without hiding. I lied to you. My voice echoed across the empty cemetery. I don't love Thomas. The ring trembled between my fingers. I never stopped loving you. There was still no answer. I'm sorry. I sat there until evening. Before leaving, I placed the ring back on my hand. It remained there for the rest of my life. Midnight began waiting at the door more often. After Evan disappeared, I sometimes wondered whether she had seen him too. Animals recognize things humans ignore. Every night, she slept against my chest. I told her, "It's only you and me now." Midnight would press her head beneath my chin. 2 years later, she became ill. The veterinarian explained that she was old. I rejected the word as though refusing it could alter time. 4 weeks, I slept beside her on the floor. On Midnight's final evening, she looked toward the empty sofa. Her ears lifted, her tail moved once. Then she stood despite barely having the strength. She walked toward something I could not see. Evan. Midnight gave a soft cry. For 1 second, I saw him. Not clearly, only the outline of a young man, kneeling near the sofa with both arms open. Midnight walked into the light around him. Then her body relaxed in my hands. I cried into her fur. You even took the cat. The room remained silent, but somewhere deep inside me, I felt Evan, laughing. People repeatedly encouraged me to date. My friend Sophie tried hardest. She married, had a daughter, and insisted that happiness was not a betrayal. I know, I told her. Then meet someone. I don't want to. You're afraid. No. You think Evan would be angry. He spent 5 years begging me to move on. Then why won't you? Because moving forward does not require replacing him. Sophie sighed. You cannot live beside a memory forever. Watch me. She did. Years passed. I worked, traveled, cared for Evan's parents as they grew older, visited my mother every Sunday, attended Sophie's daughter's birthday parties. I did not stop living. I simply did not marry. Some people believed that made my life tragic. They were wrong. A life does not become empty simply because it contains one great love instead of several. I saw cities Evan and I had once planned to visit. Paris in spring, Prague during winter, Rome beneath summer heat, the Norwegian coast under the northern lights. Everywhere I went, I carried a photograph of him inside my passport. At each destination, I bought 2 postcards, one for myself, one for Evan. I left his cards beside the grave. You would have complained about the hotel in Paris. Silence. The coffee in Rome would have made you unbearable. Silence. You would have loved Norway. Always silence. Eventually, I stopped waiting for an answer, but I never stopped speaking. On our 20th anniversary, my mother died. She had been ill for several months but hid the severity because she feared leaving me alone. At the hospital, she held my hand. I'm sorry. For what? For going. You don't need to apologize. You've already lost to many people. I'll be all right. You always say that. I learned from you. My mother smiled faintly. Did Evan really remain at the cemetery? I froze. I had never told her the full truth. What do you mean? You looked over your shoulder whenever you visited his grave. My mother's breathing became slower, and sometimes you smiled before answering questions no one asked. Tears filled my eyes. You knew. A mother notices. Why didn't you say anything? Because you looked happy when you spoke to him. I lowered my head. He stayed 5 years. And then, I made him believe I had moved on. Did he? Yes. Good. Her answer surprised me. You think I did the right thing. You loved him enough to release him. She squeezed my fingers. Now love yourself enough to remain. I'm trying. I know. My mother died peacefully that evening. After the funeral, I returned to Evan's grave. The house is empty again. Wind moved through the grass. I'm frightened of the nights. The ring felt cold against my hand. Everyone leaves eventually. A bird landed on the headstone. It remained for several seconds before flying away. I decided to consider that an answer. I grew older. My hair turned grey. My hands became unsteady. Sophie's daughter grew up and had children of her own. They called me Aunt Lena and believed I was mysterious because I travelled alone and never married. One of them once asked, "Did you ever fall in love?" Sophie almost dropped her tea. I smiled. Once. What happened? He died. The child considered this. Do you still love him? Yes. Does he know? I hope so. She looked toward my ring. Then you're still together. Children sometimes understand what adults complicate. Yes, I said. In a way, we are. On the anniversary marking 50 years since Evan and I first became a couple, I returned to the cemetery with mango cake. Walking had become difficult. Thomas accompanied me. He had married years earlier and had grandchildren. We remained friends because he was the only living person who understood what happened during Evan's final week. He placed a folding chair beside the grave. You should not be walking this far. I'm not dead yet. That joke stopped being funny 30 years ago. It improves with age. Thomas shook his head. You sound like Evan. I sat down slowly. That is the nicest thing you've ever said. He walked away to give me privacy. I looked at Evan's photograph. You still look 27. I touched my white hair. This seems unfair. The cemetery had changed. New graves surrounded his. Marev's headstone had become weathered. The oak trees had grown larger. Yet Evan's smile remained unchanged. I kept my promise. The afternoon light blurred. I cared for your parents. My breathing had become difficult during the previous winter. Doctors offered procedures and medications. I accepted what might help, refused what would only prolong discomfort, and continued living quietly. I traveled. The ring still rested on my hand. I planted the flowers you taught me about. A laugh escaped me. Most of them died. Wind moved through the trees. I never loved Thomas. I imagined Evan rolling his eyes. He knows. I placed the cake beside the headstone. I'm tired. For a moment, fear entered me. Not fear of dying. Fear that I had imagined everything. That Evan had disappeared into nothing. That no one waited beyond the final breath. Then I remembered midnight standing toward invisible arms. My mother's quiet smile. The warmth that sometimes entered empty rooms. Without explanation, I leaned back in the chair. If you were somewhere, don't make me wait too long. My eyes closed. When I opened them, I was standing on a familiar street near our university. Snow covered the pavement. A black cat sat on the opposite side. Midnight. She ran toward me. My body no longer hurt. My hands were young again. The ring shone on my finger. Midnight circled my feet, crying loudly. Then a voice called from across the road. Lena Winters, you were unbelievably slow. I stopped breathing out of habit. Evan stood beneath a street lamp, 27, smiling, exactly as he had been before the accident. For several seconds, neither of us moved. Then I crossed the road. Evan opened his arms. This time, when I reached him, my body did not pass through his. He was warm, real. I buried my face against his chest. You idiot. He laughed while crying. I've been waiting. You made me spend an entire lifetime missing you. You made me believe you married Thomas. That was your fault. My fault. You refused to leave. You could have told me you saw me and trapped you in a cemetery forever. I would have stayed. Exactly. Evan held my face between his hands. Did you love him? No, not even a little. He complained constantly and made terrible tea. That sounds serious. I loved one person. His smile disappeared. Who? I struck his chest. You. How long? Since the mango cake. I loved you first. You apologized to a chair. It was an awkward situation. I began laughing. After 50 years of silence. The sound felt unfamiliar. Evan pressed his forehead against mine. Say it again. What? You know, I had denied him those words during our final day at the cemetery. I had carried them through every year that followed. Now, there was no reason to hide them. I love you. His eyes closed. Again, I love you. One more time. I will love you forever. Evan kissed me beneath the falling snow. Midnight cried impatiently until we picked her up. Between us, beyond the street, warm lights glowed from the windows of a small house. Our house, the one we never had time to buy. Evan took my hand, ready to go home. I looked at him, at the ring, at midnight resting in his arms. For the first time since the accident, nothing separated us. Yes, together, we walked toward the light. Some people believe moving forward means forgetting. It does not. Lena continued living. She worked, traveled, cared for family, and remained open to the world. She did not spend her life waiting beside a grave, but she also refused to treat love as something replaceable merely because other people were uncomfortable with her choice. Evan wanted her to live. Lena wanted him to be free. To save him, she allowed him to believe the one thing that would hurt them both enough to make him leave. He thought her goodbye meant she had stopped loving him. In truth, it was the greatest act of love she could give. Sometimes love means staying. Sometimes it means releasing someone who would remain trapped for your sake. And sometimes the final goodbye is only a promise to meet again somewhere time can no longer separate two people. What would you have done in Lena's position? Would you have told Evan that you could see his spirit, even if it meant he might never move on, or would you have pretended to love someone else so he could finally be free? Share your opinion in the comments. And if you enjoy emotional stories about love, loss, sacrifice and second chances beyond goodbye, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story. This story is entirely fictional and created for entertainment purposes. It does not encourage people experiencing grief to isolate themselves or avoid support. Grief can affect everyone differently, and anyone struggling after a loss should consider speaking with trusted people, a grief counsellor, or another qualified professional